The world has sold you a lie about what makes a woman truly irresistible. It has told you that magnetism is purely about aesthetics, that it requires loud, performative confidence. Or worse, that it means bending over backwards to be endlessly accommodating, universally liked, and flawlessly agreeable. The uncomfortable reality is, human beings do not respect what they can easily manipulate. We are biologically wired to overlook what is constantly available and to deeply devalue what begs for our validation. Think about the women who command a room without speaking, the ones who leave a lasting, undeniable impact long after they have walked out the door. Their power does not come from the clothes they wear or the volume of their voice. It comes from something much deeper. It comes from a masterclass in primal psychology. Before a single word is even spoken, human beings read silent psychological signals. We are constantly, unconsciously scanning each other. We look at micro-expressions. We sense desperate energy. We notice when someone is shrinking themselves to fit into a space, or when they are nervously trying to fill the silence with meaningless chatter. We instinctively know who is hunting for approval and who is anchored in their own worth. An immature person enters a room wondering, do they like me? Am I enough? A mature, truly irresistible woman enters a room and thinks, do I like them? Do they align with my values? This is not arrogance. It is radical self-ownership. It is the first and most fundamental shift in the architecture of human attraction and respect. When a woman operates from a place of internal certainty, she disrupts the usual social game. She is not seeking permission to exist. She is not performing for applause. She understands that her energy is a rare currency, and she refuses to spend it on cheap transactions. Because she does not need the validation of the room, she inevitably becomes the most magnetic force inside of it. Now, compare that to the behavior we see every day. The nervous laughter, the over-explaining, the constant reflexive apologizing for merely taking up space, enforcing a boundary, or possessing a dissenting opinion. These are unconscious signals of a lower status position. They tell the primitive part of the human brain, I am not secure, please reassure me, please accept me. And the tragic paradox of human behavior is this. The more you silently beg for reassurance, the less people are inclined to give it to you. People cannot deeply respect, let alone be captivated by, someone they feel they can easily control. History repeatedly shows that true influence belongs to those who possess themselves fully. An irresistible woman is not irresistible because she is flawless. She is irresistible because she has stopped trying to prove her worth to people who have not earned a seat at her table. She has mastered the quiet, unseen forces of human behavior. This philosophy is rooted in Stoicism. It is the profound realization that while you cannot control the fleeting perceptions of others, you have absolute dictatorial control over your own standard of behavior. Over the course of this analysis, we are going to dissect the 6 psychological habits that build this exact type of undeniable magnetism. These are not superficial tricks. This is the dark, unfiltered reality of how respect, attraction, and power actually operate in the human mind. The foundation begins not with what she adds to her life, but what she brutally strips away. It begins with the destruction of the illusion that she needs to be understood by everyone. The first defining habit of an irresistible woman is the ruthless mastery of silence and restraint. In a world utterly obsessed with noise, where everyone is screaming for attention, restraint is the ultimate flex of psychological power. Most people are deeply, physically uncomfortable with silence. When a conversation lulls, they panic. They rush to fill the void with words, nervously oversharing, revealing their insecurities, and broadcasting their desperate need to be understood. Psychologically speaking, the act of over-explaining is a subtle but devastating surrender of power. Think about it. When a person says no and immediately follows it with a 5-minute justification, what are they actually communicating? They are silently telling the other person, my boundary is not valid unless you agree with my reasoning. They are handing over the gavel and asking the other person to act as their judge. It signals a psychological debt that simply does not exist. A mature woman does not barter for validation. She understands that no is a complete sentence. She delivers her truth, her boundary, or her decision, and then she does something terrifying to the fragile ego. She remains completely silent. She lets the reality of her words hang in the air. When you remove the frantic need to explain yourself, you instantly command a different tier of respect. This introduces the profound power of mystery. Mystery is not about playing childish games. It is not about being artificially aloof, distant, or manipulative. True mystery is the natural byproduct of emotional restraint. It is the result of possessing a deeply rooted inner life that you do not feel compelled to broadcast to every single person you meet. Human beings are biologically drawn to the unknown. We are captivated by puzzles. When you lay all your cards on the table within the first 5 minutes of meeting someone, there is nothing left to discover. The intrigue immediately dies. But when you hold back, when you speak only when your words improve upon the silence, people lean in. They assign higher value to what you say because your words are scarce. Observe the mechanics of power in any room, in any negotiation, or in any relationship. The person who speaks the most is rarely the one in control. The person who talks incessantly is busy proving themselves. They are bleeding information. The irresistible woman operates on an entirely different frequency. She uses silence as a high-level diagnostic tool. While others are busy talking about themselves to inflate their own egos, she is quietly gathering intelligence. She is watching. She is analyzing. She notes how people speak about others when they are not in the room. She watches how they handle minor inconveniences. She observes what they reveal when their egos are stroked. By simply holding her tongue, she creates a psychological vacuum. And human nature dictates that people will always rush to fill a vacuum. They will overcompensate. They will reveal their true intentions, their hidden agendas, and their character flaws if you just give them enough silence to do so. She is playing psychological chess, while everyone else is playing emotional checkers. This level of restraint requires immense discipline. It means actively resisting the urge to have the last word. It means letting someone else be wrong without feeling the frantic need to correct them. It means observing a chaotic situation and deciding that your peace of mind is infinitely more valuable than participating in their drama. When you stop seeking to be understood by everyone, you become impervious to manipulation. You become a self-contained force. And it is this very restraint that sets the stage for the next, most critical test of human interaction, the way a woman enforces her reality when the world inevitably tries to push back. The concept of boundaries has been severely diluted in modern culture. Most people believe a boundary is an announcement. They draft long, emotional text messages outlining how they expect to be treated. They issue ultimatums. They plead for basic decency. The uncomfortable reality is this: an announced boundary without action is simply a negotiation, and you cannot negotiate your own self-respect. The second habit of an irresistible woman is her profound understanding that boundaries are defined entirely by action, not by declarations. She does not tell people how to treat her. She shows them what she will absolutely not tolerate by swiftly removing her presence. You must understand a dark truth about human nature. People will constantly test your limits. It is an unconscious, primal mechanism to determine hierarchy and establish control. Disrespect rarely begins with a massive, catastrophic betrayal. It starts with microaggressions. It is a slow, methodical test of the perimeter. It begins with a backhanded compliment, a canceled plan at the last minute, a subtly demeaning joke disguised as banter, a pattern of arriving just a little too late. The other person is unconsciously throwing a pebble at your psychological window to see if you will open the door. An immature person catches the pebble and throws it back. They get defensive. They argue. They explain why the behavior hurt them. They demand an apology. By doing this, they are rewarding the disrespect with their most valuable resource, their energy and emotional bandwidth. They are proving that their internal state can be easily destabilized by an external force. To the primitive brain of the offender, this signals weakness. They learn that they can disrespect you, and all it will cost them is a minor argument. Now, compare that to the irresistible woman. When the test comes, and it always comes, she does not engage in a frantic debate. She executes a calm, consequence-driven action. If you disrespect her time, she leaves. If you speak to her with contempt, she ends the conversation. She understands that the ultimate, unarguable consequence for disrespect is the immediate and absolute withdrawal of her access. There is nothing more psychologically terrifying to a manipulator or more deeply respected by a secure individual than someone who is genuinely willing to walk away. Walking away is the ultimate display of stoic power. It communicates without a single spoken word. My life is perfectly complete without you in it. It proves that her internal foundation is so robust that she would rather sit alone in peace than sit at a table where she must barter for her dignity. People do not listen to your words, they adapt to your tolerances. You train people how to treat you by what you allow to continue. This woman is kind, but her kindness is not a liability. It is backed by the lethal capacity to cut ties. She has a line. Once that line is crossed, access is revoked. Her respect is commanded not through loud aggression, but through the absolute, unyielding coldness of her absence. But to execute this level of boundary setting, one must possess an extraordinary grip on their own nervous system. You cannot walk away calmly if you are internally shattered. And this brings us to the third habit, and the true source of her absolute invincibility. Every emotional reaction is a surrender of control. When someone insults you, dismisses you, or places you under immense pressure, they are essentially handing you a script. They are setting a psychological trap and waiting to see if you will step into it. They want anger. They want tears. They want you to launch into a frantic defense. The uncomfortable reality is, whoever dictates your emotional state dictates your reality. The third and fourth habits of the irresistible woman fuse together into absolute emotional mastery. She understands the fatal danger of an emotional reaction. An emotional outburst is not just a loss of composure. It is a massive, unchecked release of psychological data. When you react emotionally, you draw a map directly to your deepest insecurities. You hand your opponent the exact blueprint of how to break you in the future. Manipulators, narcissists, and toxic individuals do not care if your reaction is positive or negative. They only care that they were the cause of it. To them, your reaction is the ultimate currency of power. It proves they hold weight in your mind. A mature woman starves them of this currency. When confronted with disrespect, a passive-aggressive insult, or high-stakes pressure, she does not snap back. She deploys one of the most terrifying weapons in human psychology, the pause. There is a psychological violence in a sudden, deliberate pause. While an immature person rushes to defend their ego, she simply looks at the offender, holds unwavering eye contact, and lets 3 to 4 seconds of absolute silence pass. That silence is deafening. It acts as a mirror, reflecting the absurdity and disrespect of the aggressor's behavior directly back onto them. It shifts the burden of discomfort instantly. They expected a chaotic fight, but instead, they hit a psychological brick wall. This total lack of reaction makes her dangerously unpredictable. Human beings find comfort in patterns. If an aggressor insults you and you get mad, they know how to control you. But you cannot manipulate a person you cannot read. If they cannot make her angry, they cannot manipulate her into making a foolish, impulsive mistake. If they cannot make her anxious, they cannot rush her into a bad decision. She steps entirely outside the matrix of their control. She becomes a psychological ghost. Now, compare that to someone who is a slave to their impulses. They are tossed around by every passing comment. They are exhausted, perpetually at the mercy of how the world decides to treat them that day. The stoic woman understands that anger is a punishment you give yourself for someone else's mistake. She refuses to drink the poison. If someone tries to gaslight her or minimize her reality, she does not cry or plead for them to see the truth. She looks at them, entirely unimpressed, and calmly asks, "Are you finished?" This level of emotional mastery annihilates a manipulator's ego. It proves that she is the undisputed architect of her internal world. And when a woman becomes this grounded, this utterly unshakable in the face of chaos, her value skyrockets. She ceases to be just another person in the room. She becomes an extreme rarity, which sets the stage for the final laws of human attraction, the psychology of scarcity, and the building of an undeniable reputation. The uncomfortable reality is, human attention operates on the exact same economic principles as any physical currency. In every market, in every society, and in every psychological dynamic, value is inextricably tied to scarcity. We are biologically wired to take abundant resources for granted. If gold rained from the sky every single day, it would be swept into the gutters like dirt. The same principle applies to your time, your energy, and your presence. The fifth and sixth habits of the irresistible woman culminate in the absolute ownership of her availability and the cultivation of a bulletproof reputation. She understands that to be deeply valued, she cannot be endlessly accessible. An immature person equates constant availability with being loved. They reply to messages in milliseconds. They drop their own priorities to accommodate people who treat them as an afterthought. They overinvest in one-sided relationships, mistakenly believing that if they just give more, sacrifice more, and bend over backward, they will finally be respected. But human nature does not reward desperation. When you give someone unlimited, unearned access to your life, you are unconsciously signaling that your time has no inherent worth. Now, compare that to the stoic, mature woman. She does not play petty games. She does not pretend to be busy to artificially inflate her worth. She is busy. Her life is filled with purpose, ambition, and a fiercely protected inner peace. Her time is not a public park. It is a highly secure vault. You do not just walk in. You have to earn the right to be there. Because she limits her availability, every interaction with her feels like a privilege. When she gives you her attention, it is absolute, focused, and intensely present. But the moment the interaction no longer serves a mutual purpose, or the moment disrespect enters the frame, she flawlessly withdraws. She leverages the psychology of scarcity not to manipulate, but to protect her most valuable asset, her life force. This leads to the final, undisputed pillar of her magnetism: consistency. People do not trust what you say. They trust what you repeatedly do. An undeniable reputation is not built on a single, flashy display of confidence. It is forged in the quiet, unyielding consistency of her actions over time. It is the fact that she always walks away from disrespect. It is the fact that she never compromises her core values to fit into a room. It is the reality that she never chases, begs, or pleads. When a woman operates with this level of relentless consistency, she stops being just another person navigating the social hierarchy. She becomes a fixed point of gravity. Manipulators give up trying to break her because they know she will not bend. High-value individuals are drawn to her because they recognize a rare, authentic equal. Ultimately, true magnetism is not a performance. It is a profound state of self-possession. The world will always try to convince you that to be loved, you must shrink, adapt, and please. But history repeatedly shows that the women who actually shift the atmosphere, the ones who are truly, profoundly irresistible, are the ones who refuse to play the game altogether. She is not irresistible because she desperately needs you to look at her. She is irresistible because she is entirely at peace even if you look away.